Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elliot Callan, CEO of Prosperity Financial Group. Very exciting what we're doing today. Again, something a little bit different. We are interviewing a professional CEO here right now. That's going to be Mark O'Donnell from Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. His company is called EOS Systems, and it sounds like a data company, but it's not. It's a people energy company. Very exciting what we're doing, something different. He's somebody that deals with companies that helps develop vision statements and energy statements and drives people and gets them all on the same page. So when you're looking to grow and you're in the C-suite of a dynamic company, his company is the kind of company you want to bring in to make sure that all the horses are pulling in the same direction. So welcome everybody. If you need to reach us, it's at prosperityfinancialgroup.com, 925-314-8500, and let's get started. So welcome, Mark. Glad to have you here. And let me give you a quick background. He has been in the Hall of Fame twice with Inc. magazine. That's pretty spectacular. But his company, more than what he's done, is what they're doing right now, which is really an entrepreneurial operating system. That's what EOS Worldwide stands for. And in our world, that means for you and I who are running companies, part of companies, HR companies, the people that are listening to this, is he is managing human energy. So that's what they do: leadership, visions, goal setting, companies 10 to 250. If you're part of that team, that C-suite team or HR team, or know somebody that is, you're going to love what you're about to hear because it's pretty spectacular. So welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. So why don't we start a little bit about the company that sounds like an operating system, like a software company, but it's a human energy system. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and the impact you have, and then I'll ask you some questions about it, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So just as you said, EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's a complete system with real world, simple, practical tools that help companies, entrepreneurs, leaders do three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy. So vision's really from the standpoint of getting you and your leadership team 100% on the same page with your vision, where you're going, how you're going to get there. And then traction is all about creating discipline and accountability to execute on every aspect of that vision. And then healthy is really about creating really healthy, cohesive, and functional teams. And so what it is that we do, we start with the leadership team, the 3 to 8 people usually at the helm of the organization. We get them on the same page with that vision, seeing the same thing and wanting the same thing. We're helping them become masters of execution and healthy teams, starting with that leadership teams. If you got 50 people, then we work one layer at a time to the point where all 50 out of 50 of your people are experiencing those same three things. So that's what we do all day, every day. Just a little bit of stats on who we've worked with. So it's all based in the book Traction by Gino Wickman. So that's really the first book by our founder. The Traction Library has sold over 3 million copies to date. Over 270,000 or so companies have used our tools, and we have EOS implementers, and they're the teachers, facilitators, and coaches that work directly with companies. We worked with about 27,000 companies to date in about 37 countries, and there's about 800 implementers around the world. And so that's what we do. And we say it's a system for managing human energy because the tools are really about alignment and getting every human inside of your business rowing in the same direction, executing really well, and having a good time doing it. So that's what we do.
Well, great. And folks, if you're wondering why we're interviewing Mark at all, is we are in both the consumer as financial advisors and a $400+ million entity here in San Ramon, California. We deal with a lot of business owners and C-suite people, and we all talk to them about exit strategy, vision. Are you on track? How's the company doing? Are you making money? These are common questions that come up, and we're used to those questions as financial people, and we want to help companies grow because we want to be part of their growth and part of their exit strategy at the same time, because that's how we capitalize on that. But for Mark and what he's doing, he's trying to get everybody on the same page. And I have a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, who ran a 35-person, $5 billion entity. Fabulous. And he hired a company like Mark's to come on in and to make sure everybody was on a page. So they interviewed all 35 people on the company, at the company, and this friend of mine who was the CEO said, "I'm guessing that we probably have 4 or 5 different visions for the company, 4 or 5 different goals for the company." So with 35 employees, you know how many he had, Mark? 35.
That's right. Not surprising.
And I'm guessing we're not that size. We're not quite that big, at almost $500 million with our one firm and almost the same amount with our second firm. We're not quite that big, but I bet you that everybody here has a different vision because it's all self-serving.
That's right.
And so when we've got a company, let me walk through. We've got a company. Let's say it's 50 people, 40 people, 30 people, 75 people. Your sweet spot. And we say, boy, if we want to have a 5-year growth boom here, we're going to need everybody pulling in the same direction. All the horses in the stable, get in line to pull the company in the right direction. So how does that begin to do that? And how do you do that? Because I have to tell you, I'm the CEO and I have a vision for my company, but I know that other people, when they come to work, their jobs are more important than my vision.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So the way we do that is, well, number one is to kind of boil this down, just give you a little historical context, is there's lots of business tools out in the world. There's thousands of books you can read. And our founder, Gino Wickman, what he did was he took all those books, thousands of tools, and he had some criteria that he's going to create some tools and reuse some tools that have been in existence. So anything I'm going to say has been around for 100 years. It's going to be around for 1,000 more. In other words, they're based in first principles. And so he took those tools, tested them in front of clients, and it was about what can produce the largest amount of time of results in the least amount of time. So the 20-80 rule. So all the tools that I'm going to share are very, very simple. They're stripped down, and it's just designed to produce the largest amount of results in the least amount of time, effort, and energy. So just for some context there. And so what we do is we strengthen what we call the 6 key components of the business. So the vision component, and there's 2 tools that we use for that, which I'll get into. There's the people component. You can't execute on that vision without great people. There's the data component, it's measurements and getting all the data so you're making great decisions. The issues component is really about solving issues at the root so they go away forever. Then the process component is about developing your franchise prototype so you can consistently produce results for your customers. Then finally is traction. That's really where the rubber meets the road. That's how you propel the organization forward, because vision without traction is just hallucination. So with that vision component, and anyone who wants to implement these tools can go to our website, eosworldwide.com, or they can go to local Barnes & Noble or Amazon and get the copy of Traction and do everything I'm saying on their own. With vision, it's really number one is answering 8 questions. So what are our core values? What is our core focus? What's our core target? What is our marketing strategy? What's our 3-year picture? What is our 1-year plan? What are our quarterly rocks, our 90-day goals? And what's our long-term issues list? So the first job of the leadership team is to answer those 8 questions. Get 100% on the same page with it. And then if you got 50 people, you got to tell them all. You got to tell them hey, these are our core values. And then you could perpetuate them by hiring and firing, reviewing, rewarding, and recognizing your people around those values. So it starts with the leadership team. As goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. You answer those 8 questions. Every quarter, you repeat it. Tell everyone where we're going on the same page. Just repeat yourself often. So that's really what 100% strong looks like in that vision component, getting everyone on the same page. People are simply people who share your core values. They fit your culture. You're hiring and firing, reviewing, rewarding, and recognizing all your people around those core values. And they're in the right seats. They know what they're doing. They know what their roles and responsibilities are. They want, and have the capacity to do each of those roles. Data is just about scorecard measurables at every level. Leadership team, every team in the business having a scorecard, everyone having a number. If you got 50 out of 50 people has a number. They know what they're accountable for delivering to the business each week. Issues, number one, admit you have them. Smoke them out, put them on a list, and use what we call IDS, which is identify, discuss, and solve those issues at the root so they go away forever. And then with process, what 100% strong looks like there is documenting your handful of core processes and then getting them followed by everyone in the organization with absolute consistency. And then finally, traction is really about how you meet with each team. So having very specific agenda on a weekly cadence and pulse, solving issues, taking to-dos, making sure your numbers are on track, making sure your priorities are on track throughout the whole company. And then finally is rocks, really everyone in the business, 50 out of 50, having a 90-day goal or priority that they're focused on every 90 days, because we all fall apart in 90 days. So that's really how it is we do what we do. Those 6 key components are critical. And no one's perfect. If you can get 80% strong in those 6 key components, you're good to go.
Okay, so I noticed that's just great stuff, and I was taking notes too. I noticed that when we're talking about this, we have to bring the most important part back to this, and the greatest challenge that we all have as business owners, and that's people. So we can give them goals, we can give them vision, we can do that, but we can't change their personality. We can't change their home life. We can't change a lot of things. But we may have to change people. And if part of what we do is scale up because we want to double or triple the company in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to go through a lot of people. How does this play in? Because that is the real challenge.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And myself and 2 co-authors just wrote and released our newest book, which is called People, Dare to Build an Intentional Culture. And so really what we're doing is we're taking that people component of the 6 key components, we're double clicking on it and saying, okay, how do we master these tools? How do we build a culture with intent? And the subtitle is Dare to Build an Intentional Culture. And the reason dare is really important is, Jim Collins made famous, you got to get all the right people on the bus and then decide where the bus is going to go. But what most conveniently or, shy away from anyway, is the first step is to get all the wrong people off the bus, get all the right people on the bus, then go to where you want to go. So when we think about that, and how do you scale a culture? Well, again, it starts with those core values. And you got to hire, fire, review, reward, and recognize all your people around those core values from the beginning. You're probably not going to change personalities. You're probably not going to convince people they should share core values that they don't. They really just don't belong in your business. And they would be much happier working for someone else who does share their core values. So when we were writing the book and we were researching these thousands of companies, we really identified there's 4 culture types that emerge through the entrepreneurial journey. Number 1 culture type is we call the happy accident, where it's really healthy. People love one another, but it has no intentionality to it. You've hired your cousins, your brother, your sister, whoever it is, your friends from college, and you know that if you start to hire, that culture is just going to collapse because all the personalities don't mix because there's no intentionality to it. Next is a chaotic culture where it's not healthy and it's not intentional, and that's where politics and gossip and water cooler talk thrive. You might have some pockets of health and pockets of where people are performing and happy doing it, but it's really unpredictable and it's very chaotic in general. And then we have what we call a command and control culture, which is something that is really intentional, but people are really looked at as replaceable parts. It's very transactional. It's marked with high turnover, and it's not very healthy. People aren't happy there, and they will take the first job that offers them $1 an hour more than they're getting now. And so that's a command and control culture. The 4th type is what we teach people to build, which is what we call an intentional culture. It's very, very healthy. It's open and honest. It's high trust. And people who don't fit in those cultures, they self-select out because they already know that they don't fit. So it's high levels of intentionality. All your hiring processes are designed and aligned to bring on the people who share your core values, who have the capacity to do their roles really well. And that results in a very healthy environment. It's a culture that scales. People don't really think about scaling a culture, and it is intentional. It requires a lot of courage because you got to most likely let go of some of the people you hired in the beginning or the people that you hired because they were the first available and you thought they could do the job. And so it takes some courage to do that. It takes a high level of intentionality, and it's a forever job. It's not something that ends. So when we talk about that people component and double clicking into that, that's really where we want people to end up, is in an intentional culture.
Well, you've been listening to Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan. We're going to take a few moments off here, but you're listening to Mark O'Donnell on how to drive your company to new heights, get the people to pull all in the same direction, and managing human energy. We'll see you in a moment. So it's kind of funny you talk about that intentional culture. I've got a book behind me that I wrote that's not at 100,000 copies or 300,000 copies. But it is an Amazon bestseller about leadership and leadership within the corporate world. And you're right, and it is by intention. You can't be an accidental leader. You just are the leader. Julius Caesar didn't happen by accident, so to speak. So, but I do know that for somebody who's now started 5 companies as an entrepreneur and sold 2 of them, that when you're scaling up and you're growing, no matter how intentional you want to be, you are always in a world of chaotic because you're in growth mode. And then chaotic gets a lot of people, and we're always in that because we're growing double digits. Prosperity Financial Group is growing double digits. You mean net assets every year, year over year, which is pretty amazing. An industry that's barely growing. But what it does, it puts, and I'm sure business owners can really appreciate this, it puts huge strain on your people. If your people are your assets, and they're the most important assets that you have, not your baking machinery or your pie making mixes or your even ingredients, but your people are your assets here. And you look at them as assets, then you put strain on them that they take their work home. And because you are so growth oriented and so trying to make it work and trying to fit 24 hours of work into every 8 hours, that you're the hardest guy to duplicate and the most driven person in the company, probably as CEO. And so you're driving your people nuts, so to speak. Sorry for the official word there. And but you're trying to do this, and you're right, you want to be intentional in your culture, but you're bordering on chaotic. So how do you do that? Because I know as a business owner, I do some of the nicest things for my employees that I know owners do. They do a great job. I walk in with $1,000 or $500 gift card, which I know is not taxable to them because I'm getting them a gift card. I buy them lunches as often as I can. I have breakfast here. We do all these wonderful things, but sometimes they are working so hard that they want to pull their hair out.
Yeah. We see that all the time, especially in growing companies or in general. And we would call that hitting the ceiling. And so what I'm going to do is sort of describe how I think about it in 2 different models, if you will. The first is what we would call hitting the ceiling. And that's where things are just chaotic. It's a mess. It's inevitable. It happens over and over. It's this evolution and revolution of business. You break through the ceiling. You think everything is great. You start growing, and then you hit the ceiling again. Everything falls apart. So to the degree that you can master what we would call 5 leadership abilities, you can break through that ceiling each and every time. And you're hitting that ceiling on the company level. You're hitting the ceiling on the departmental or team level and on an individual level. So when we think about that, and it's an emotional response, you feel when you're hitting the ceiling, you understand that, why is this so hard? And it will be hard, and it's inevitable. It's going to always happen. If you ever think that you're going to be free of that feeling of a little bit of stress, a little bit of chaos, you're kidding yourself, unless you're dead, I assume. It's inevitable if you're a growing concern. And sometimes even if you're not. So the 5 leadership abilities are, number one, the ability to simplify, to just break everything down. I mentioned first principles, kind of take everything down to its root. It's simple. And you want to just eliminate all the complexity in your business the best you possibly can on every level. The second one is to delegate and elevate according to unique ability, God-given talent. So you really want to be in your sweet spot, which I'm going to go a little bit into in the kind of the second way to think about this. The next is your ability to predict, to solve issues so they go away forever. And you do that long-term and short-term. Long-term is really about your vision, right? So how do we take advantage of opportunities? When I use the word issue, I'm really talking about opportunities, ideas, and indeed the issues in the classical sense. Then the fourth leadership ability, the ability to to systemize. And that's really about strengthening that process component to really create that repeatable system, those forms that you are executing on with absolute consistency. And then the last leadership ability is the ability to structure. That reduces complexity, that increases communication. That's really about how you organize your people through what we call an accountability chart or organizational chart. So what are the roles and responsibilities, who's doing what? So those are the 5 leadership abilities: the ability to simplify, the ability to delegate, to predict, to systemize, and structure. In other words, hitting the ceiling is inevitable. Master those 5 things, you'll break through each time. Now, to zoom in then on the individual inside of a company. What we write about in the People book is a little bit of an adaptation from Csikszentmihalyi in the challenge skills balance. And so we called it the GWC flow channel. And GWC stands for get it, where all the synapses of your brain connect when someone explains the job to you and you do it. Want it, you're just hardwired, you're motivated, you want the job, there's no amount of money you can pay someone to do it, you gotta want it on your own. And capacity, the spiritual, physical, emotional, knowledge capacity to do the job as assigned. And so what happens when we're growing as an organization, we've got our people, we get a new client or whatever it might be, we end up giving work to people who are present, right? That's sort of like in sports, the number one skill is availability. Like, well, hey, you're there, so I'm just going to give this stuff to you. You go do this now. And if we don't do that with some level of intentionality, you can throw them out of their challenge skills balance. In other words, they've got their roles, they're in their sweet spot where they've got the skill, the challenge is the right amount of challenge, and it's really great for them. You pile all this new work on them, and now the challenge has increased. And what happens is when the challenge rises too far outside of their current skill set, they end up in a place of stress and anxiety, and they start to behave erratically. And so even if they share your core values and they are a perfect fit, all of a sudden they don't seem like a perfect fit. They used to be great. I mean, how many times have you heard have you said or felt like, oh man, that person used to be so good. What happened to them? Well, you sort of abdicated and not really delegated intentionally. And so the challenge presented in their role is higher than their skill set, and they act out of anxiety and stress. The same is true on the opposite side, where the challenge isn't high enough based on their current skill set, and then they get bored. They're just kind of checked out. They work as little as possible because they're a person who just keeps on upskilling. And the bored person and the person who's stressed out and filled with anxiety sort of act the same, right? A little erratic, not really predictable, not reliable, and they procrastinate and all those different types of things. So those are the 2 models that I would present as a way to think about your people as your number one investment in your organization. And you got to give them the skills to break through the ceiling each time. And you have to be aware where you're putting them emotionally when you assign something to them and delegate something to them. And make sure you're actually delegating, not abdicating. There's a difference.
So we're talking with Mark O'Donnell, who is the CEO of EOS, which stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's about people, it's about vision, it's about managing human energy in companies. I still got a few more questions, before we end this, Mark. But if somebody wants to reach me, they can reach me at Elliot, Elliot, at prosperityfinancialgroup.com or 925-314-8503, or look us up at prosperityfinancialgroup.com, because all these Meet the Expert episodes are on there, and we're in the top 1 to 2% of all financial podcasts globally. So lots of people, Mark, are going to be listening to this, and they're going to get something out of it. If they're in that C-suite, they're really going to appreciate what you're saying. I have been a big fan, Mark, of personal coaching. I wish I was a bigger fan of physical coaching, and I maybe wouldn't have my little gut here. But I'm a big fan of personal coaching.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of Tony Robbins, Walking on Fire. I've done that, learning the systems there, and people like him along the way. Dyer, all the people that have helped are motivational. I love motivational things, so I've enjoyed that, and I think of myself as a highly motivated CEO over here at Prosperity Financial Group. But a lot of what you said, there's no but in there, a lot of what you have said has been in the personal coaching world. So I feel like if I'm hiring EOS worldwide, which probably could do a great job for even a company that's not quite big enough to not afford you, but to need you, I feel like I don't need a personal coach along the way. How do you see that?
Yeah, so there's really 3 ways to implement the tools of EOS. You could go and create your own operating system, but that would take a long time, and why reinvent the wheel? So number 1, you can do this for absolutely free, and you don't need to pay anyone to do this, and you can go get the book, and it's really a step-by-step guide on how to do that. So for $20 at your local Barnes & Noble, you can implement all the tools inside of EOS. Now, that's number 1. Number 2 is we offer what we call Basecamp, which is a way to teach an individual in the leadership team, in the C-suite, to facilitate these sessions, to get the vision, to get the core values, to document it all, and start the process of getting it shared by all. So a little cost to that, but you can do that yourself. Now, the third way is to hire an EOS implementer or a coach. And we say implementers are teachers, facilitators, and coaches. They do those 3 roles. They teach you the tools of EOS. They create the context, the container. They facilitate the answers into those tools, right? Because 99.9% of the time, the leadership teams, they have all the answers. They just got to get it, out of them and then into those tools. And then coach, they get to see other entrepreneurs playing the entrepreneurial game every day, and so they can help coach you play that game just a little bit better. Now, for me personally, I, as you said, Inc. 500, 5,000, I think 12 times now or something. I became an implementer. I started implementing these tools on my own, and I realized it was a little bit like Dr. Heal Thyself. And I wanted my team to buy into everything that we were doing, the vision that we were creating, and not just rely on me to say, okay, just tell us what to do and we'll go do it. That's not what I wanted. And I think when you have a coach of a leadership team, not one-on-one, you end up with a little bit more objectivity. Everyone's getting called out on their crap versus deference to the leader, the owner of the business. And you end up with just a faster, healthier result. You're going to get more of what you want from your business if you do have an outside person to help you do that. Just EOS Worldwide as a business doesn't make any money when EOS implementers work for clients. So it's not part of our business model to do that, but we just know it produces results. It works. The companies that last check about 6 months ago, the average company running on EOS grows 37% per year. And so, knock on wood, something's working. It's just what happens when you align human energy.
Well, this has been great. It really has been great. I want to repeat back for everybody listening the steps that Mark said. I'll put them in my words, if that's okay, Mark. Correct me if I'm wrong. Vision, obviously, begins with core values. Most companies don't have core values in writing. That's probably a pretty good thing to do, though. I'm sure you agree with that. Put them in writing. But vision, people and culture, data, so you can recognize the success, solve the issues, identify and solve the issues, create a process that's duplicatable, and then create a process that has traction to it that you can continue to implement. Did I say that properly, Mark?
Close enough. If you do those things, you'll be in good shape. I think it is important to know, though, like some people are going to say, well, what about cash? What about these types of things? We are very concerned with the process, as Seneca said, the forms that you implement inside of your business that produce results. So we don't really focus on the result itself. Those results are a byproduct of doing really simple things at a level of mastery. So that's kind of where we're focused in on those processes that produce the results.
Okay, this has been really great. So, we work with business owners, as I said, in retirement planning, life planning, and so forth. And this is a great complement to what we do. I don't work for EOS. We don't implement their systems. That's what they do. And they obviously do that very well. So, Mark, if people want to reach you, how do they do that?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. You can just email me directly at modonnell, MODONNELL at eosworldwide.com, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Super. All right, everybody, this has been great. Mark, I want to thank you for being here. It's been spectacular. And if I'm a business owner with 10 to 250 employees, I think you're the first person I'm going to call now when I hang up.
Awesome. Look forward
Thanks
to
for being here. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. Well, this has been a great episode. So let me do a quick recap, everyone, of what we've just done and what we've talked about. Because if you're in a C-suite as a business owner, a VP of finance, a VP of people, an HR manager, then you just heard golden nuggets from Mark O'Donnell of the EOS Group out in Pennsylvania. So he talked about vision and people and culture and getting that data and obviously turning that into a process that has great traction here and creating core values. It's been great what he's done. So from a managing human energy point of view, as a CEO, speaking to you as a C-suite person, I would hire this person, and I don't make any money for doing it. I would hire this person to get us in line for when we're looking to scale our business, that we do that without burning through our people and getting everybody on the same page. And as a CEO, I understand getting everybody on the same page is incredibly challenging. And that's what EOS does on a regular basis. If you want to hear more from Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan, very exciting what we're doing. You're going to pick up nuggets like this one. It's on prosperityfinancialgroup.com. There are 60 plus episodes on the website. They range from ideas like the electric car industry and batteries and lithium to CEO interviews like the one we just did. Just great listening. They're on all the podcasts that you can imagine. Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan. And I look forward to being on your earphones in the gym or at home on your next podcast.